Yes, people, tonight on Man Them Chat, we've got a very special guest in the house, legendary Luton Town and England international, Ricky Hill, talking about his football journey and also speaking about his new book available for the love of the game. Welcome, Ricky.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Ricky. Bless it.
Blessings to you all.
So, Ricky, do you want to take it from the beginning, sir?
In respects to the journey,
Where how it all started, where you grew up, how did you begin your journey in football? Some of your family background, possibly, maybe.
Okay, my parents came over from Jamaica in 1956 and obviously settled in northwest London, where some of our family from Jamaica already residing in northwest London. We actually lived in West Hampstead and then in Cricklewood most of my school life from I was probably 3 or 4 years old. Went to Anson Road Primary School in Cricklewood, then went to John Kelly Boys in Neasden alongside Steve Gattin, who played for Arsenal and Brighton. He was in my year group. And Mike Gattin, the ex-England cricketer captain, was 2 years above our age group. So yeah, good times. It was a good situation in terms of community. Everyone kind of got along. Black, white, Asian, whoever it was fairly cosmopolitan. But there was always the struggles and the difficulties that we faced as Black boys coming through the system, particularly first generation born in the UK.
Okay. So can I ask you, Ricky, obviously you're a legend. I mean, we had Nathan Abbey on here the other day and he was saying, he was raving about you being one of the greats. I saw Jamie Redknapp mention the same thing in one of the clips that I was looking at before the show. And can I ask you, what did you always love football and who inspired you?
Yes, everything starts with a vision as far as I'm concerned. The aspiration, the inspiration, and your dreams start from visions. I grew up looking at people like Muhammad Ali and those type of athletes as, wow, fantastic. I'd really want to be a sports person of some description. But the first one that gripped me was in the 1965 FA Cup final, and Liverpool played Leeds. And I was young. I didn't even know what teams they were. And I saw someone who looked like me. I thought he looked like me. He was black. He was in a white kit. So I asked my older brother, which team is that? He said, that's Leeds United. I said, oh, that's the team. That's my team. Because I was dreaming that I was Albert Johannesson, was the South African left winger who was playing for Leeds at the time. I've always, having an older brother has always meant that football has always been part of my journey. He played even, and I was probably 2, 3 years old. I would play with them, messing about inside the house, call it whatever you want. So I've always had that passion. I fell in love with it, and I felt, I really wanted to be like that person on telly playing football. And then in 1966, Pele came along to England with Eusebio, and that then reinforced my dream to say, well, I see more black players on the field. Maybe if that will be me one day. And that was the inspiration. The passion was always there in regards to the love of the game. And one thing about me as a child, I wanted to try to improve all aspects of the game as much as I could do. So I mentioned it before to someone that the first time I ever had anyone lay cones out in a formal training session was when I came to Luton as a 15-year-old on trial. Other than that, we learnt to play with our friends in school, on the street, in the boys' brigade, but there was no formal coach that was standing over you saying, do this, do that, do this, or that. So my learning came from watching TV, which was only Match of the Day and Big Match. So 2 games on a Saturday, 3 games on a Sunday. And that's how I looked at the best players in the world and the international games and obviously the cup final games, and try to take pieces out of everyone and arm myself with those skills.
So it seems to be a common theme that seeing someone who looks like you in the position that you would like to be really does help then.
100%. Representation is so important, particularly when you're a young child. You know, we have very limited knowledge of what the future holds for us or what we ultimately can be, and what, you know, we are told at certain times you can do this or you can't do that, or maybe don't have your aspirations so high in regards to achieving to be an astronaut. But if I saw someone who was black, who was an astronaut, and I loved flying and I love planes and I love space, why wouldn't I dream of saying, well, if I work hard enough, perhaps I too can be amongst those elite people?
It's possible.
And absolutely. So that for me was a big thing. I know sport is a vehicle that I've used to move forward. And I've been fortunate enough to have the opportunity to obviously play professionally and then move on into a secondary career after my professional career was over. Back in the time when I grew up, it was very limited in terms of the black people that were getting opportunities to actually even play the game at the professional level, let alone in coaching or managerial or anything of prominence.
Okay. Desmond, you have a question? You there, Desmond?
Muted.
Your mic's still muted, Desmond.
Yes.
Greetings, Brother Ricky.
Hi, Desmond. Good evening.
Yes, well, as a man in my, well, heading towards my 70s.
Wow, no way.
Well, nearly there anyway.
No way.
I remember when I was working at Vauxhall in the 70s, and I was traumatized by the behavior of particularly Millwall fans and the racism that was so prevalent in football. And I used to really admire the courage people like you had out there, because it couldn't have been easy, because I have never been to a football match until a couple of years ago. I went to, happened to be in Ipswich, and I went to a football match there. And that was the first football match I've been to in 58 years, 50 odd years in Britain. Because the memory of what football was. So I want to thank you for the courage that you guys show. People like Luther Blissett, yourself, Barnes, and so many others that I'm sure, but for you guys, for you being out there, many players playing today would not have had the courage to engage with the sport. And not just with football, but knowing what it was then and what it is now. When you talk of representation, just being visible, it just gives courage. I remember when we talk about Muhammad Ali, I remember when Muhammad Ali would win a fight, I would go to work on that Monday with my chest big up.
Absolutely.
Because it was somebody that looked like me that was whooping somebody that looked like them, and he sometimes looked like me. But,
100%.
yeah, but it was good, and I'm saying through those difficult 70s and going on even in the 80s with the uprisings and all that, football was always there as a beacon, showing what was possible. And as I said, I want to thank you.
Well, thank you, Desmond,
for representing.
No, it's a great point, Desmond. I always felt and looked upon, not that it was my duty, it was my passion, it was my dream. But also I knew from my own upbringing that there were so many talented black players that I saw and I admired, who were 2 years older than me, 3 years older than me. My brother was a fantastic left-footed mind, skillful, great attitude, great temperament, great intelligence, was never invited for a trial at any professional club. So I knew I was a minority, and if I got an opportunity, I was going to try my best to maintain that opportunity. And fortunate for me, Luton saw me playing out in Hitchin for the school. We managed to beat the team that they had 3 schoolboys playing for who were coming into Luton as apprentices that year. Our team from London beat those. They invited 3 of us for trials, 2 white guys and myself. And I was the one that managed to get through, go through the barriers, whatever they were. And then you come in, and I was at Luton as an apprentice for 5 months, and then I was called up out of nowhere to be substitute for the first team. And in those days, there was 11 players and 1 substitute. Mm-hmm. And we had 40 senior pros. We had 20 other apprentices that were ahead of me, in my estimation, because they were older than me and been at the club longer than me. But for some reason, they put me as a substitute. And as things transpired, I came on with 22 minutes to go. It was 1-1. I made a goal with one of my first passes, a long pass over the top, and someone, Brian Chambers, finished it. And then I scored in about 10 minutes later with a left foot shot. And I was still a first-year apprentice. But from that instance, that gave me the confidence to say, whoa, I belong here. I feel I'm capable here. And yeah, it wasn't always smooth sailing, but the majority of the time I was fortunate, whereby I managed to work hard, train hard, be committed, worked on my skills without the club telling me to, the coaches telling me to. I was always in early, do my jobs that I need to do, then practicing with one of my teammates, various things, stay afterwards, practice again, just to be as good as I possibly could do. The issue, as you rightly say, came when I got into the first team, still at 17. For instance, my first experience of racism was at Burnley. And I went out, and I smile now because Vincent Kompany has just joined Burnley as a manager a couple of weeks ago. But back in the 70s, when I went out there, we went out for the warm-up at 2:30, and the monkey noises, the jeering, the niggers was started then, and there wasn't a swelling of the crowd. By the time I came out at 3:00, all of a sudden the crowd was 3/4 full. And their main stand is on the side of the pitch that runs from touchline to touchline, up the full length. And they created a couple of songs for me. How much is the wog in the window? Or he's a coon, he's blacker than you and me. It's playing for us. Now I'm 17, I'm the only black player anywhere on the field. I'm the only black person probably in the stadium, no one else. My teammates are looking at me with a sadness and a helplessness in their eyes. I looked and I said, well, you know what? I'm good at this game. Let me show you why I'm here. You're not going to take away my dream with your words and your accusations or whatever you're going to say, and verbal abuse. And as it turned out, I managed to score the winning goal on that day, and it was just silence. It was 2-1. We got the victory, and I came back home. But at that era, as you rightly alluded to, everywhere we went, it didn't matter. You know, I'd go to London, and Arsenal, they were different because they created a song which said, Luton had a song that when I get the ball, I beat them all. Arsenal had one, when Ricky Hill gets the ball, he does F4. And I took that as, you know, a badge of honor that they would single you out as someone that they thought was of use to them. But everywhere you went, you had the monkey chants, you had the different verbal. Newcastle, sometimes we had to run in with our shirts over our head because father and son would be spitting from the sideline over down at the dugout, and we had to run in and run back out again, same way. But I just found a way to dig in within myself to say, this is my dream. And I would try to sometimes, well, most of the time, I'd try to disarm where the verbal abuse is coming from. I'd look straight to them, look in that area and just wave and smile. And then all the people around him would suddenly turn to them and start laughing. So I found my way to get through it, but it wasn't easy. And then when my family came, I was more concerned with them getting to the game. My cousins used to come and watch. And, you know, lots of people from Luton used to follow, Des Palmer and Lawrence and Selwyn Johnnet and John Ashton and all those guys from Luton used to come to games home and away. And they're the ones that would meet with the veracity and the abuse at times, whereby people weren't used to seeing black faces at grounds. I was okay, I was safe, I was on the pitch. It was only words. I was more concerned with the supporting family and friends that used to come and support you.
Yeah. Well, as I say, thank you very much. And
my pleasure.
I salute your courage.
Thank you very much, Bessie.
Yeah, man.
Any questions?
What should I ask one?
Abdul, you got a question?
Ricky.
Yes.
Yes.
Good
Hi.
evening.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good. Good. I did. As it's growing up, I did hear the name Ricky Hill, like I haven't actually heard much. But I do remember it. I do remember your name, but playing, but only vaguely, really.
Yes.
But I was actually wondering, was there any kind of ambition of, say, playing for the national team as well? Did you actually aim for that aspiration?
Absolutely. Particularly as a child, the big day or the weekend in my life when I was probably 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 was the FA Cup final. And Saturday was a day you'd get up at 9 o'clock, you watch every build up to the actual game at 3 o'clock. And that was a dream. To play at Wembley in an FA Cup final was a dream of mine. But it was also a dream to represent England. The World Cup was there when I remember that I was a child. The greats like Bobby Charlton and Jack Charlton for me, because I'm a Leeds supporter, Bobby Moore, and the likes of Adam Ball and Jeff Hurst. I grew up as they were the figureheads of the game, and I wanted to emulate what they've achieved for myself also. Of course, it was a dream, it was a hope, it was a wish, and ultimately for me, I was grateful that I got the opportunity. Although, in hindsight and retrospectively looking back, I think I only got 3 full caps, international caps, and at the time when I played in the 80s, the players that were being picked in front of me, I don't think man for man as a midfield player with what we're supposed to bring as a midfield player, they weren't really at the caliber that I possessed, in my humble opinion. Some of them.
That's fair
Thanks,
enough,
Abdul.
innit? That's fair enough. Mark?
I agree. I agree with you definitely 100% there, Ricky.
Me
So
too.
what I wanted to ask Ricky. So when I was growing up, obviously, I always liked football. I started
feedback,
off.
Mark. The feedback.
Sorry,
The feedback.
is there feedback? I don't know.
Yeah, on your side there.
Hold on.
Thanks, Abdul.
I'll return that one. I got it too far.
Turn the other, just turn the other one down.
All right, so Ricky,
Yes.
so I started off like as a Nottingham Forest fan because all the youths at school were supporting Forest because they were the European champions and everything. I didn't even realise that even Luton had a football club, even though the football ground was only like 5-minute walk from the house. I didn't even realise there was a football ground down there. And then one day I was watching the big match with the late Brian Moore. I don't know if you guys can remember. I'm showing my age now. And I see this man on the pitch and they said Luton Town. And then I see this black guy with an afro. And I'm like, who's this guy? I said, who is this? I didn't really know. I must have asked one of my brothers, Harvey, Freddie, one of them. I said, what's that? Who's this? And they said, yeah, that's Luton Town. They've got a football club and that's Ricky Hill. And from that, man, I've just been a Luton Town fan ever since. Yeah, you know what I mean? I had a Nottingham Forest scarf that was get dashwear. You know what I mean? And then I managed to get, I went to a match, I think 1977, 78, Bristol Rovers. I'm sure you were playing. You know what I mean? And then it's just been like that ever since, you know what I mean? What I was gonna ask is that did you like ever experience any sort of racist problems at Luton itself? And I know what the away grounds were like in them days, you know what I mean? We all heard the stories, but as a Luton player, from your home fans.
Good question, Mark. In regards to the racism, me personally, no. I don't remember any black player playing for Luton receiving any racism as such, but I do remember being in the stand and watching Orient play Luton, and Laurie Cunningham played for Orient at the time. And I remember vividly that when Laurie was going down the right wing and giving Steve Buckley a real hard time, the fans were making the monkey noises. So when I had the opportunity to speak, the press was there, and I said, well, are they booing Laurie or are they booing myself and Brian, who also are back? You know, you can't have it both ways. And from that time, I never heard anything in the latter years, but I do remember that one occasion when Laurie Cunningham was playing.
Yeah. Can I ask another question? Has anyone got their hands up? No, I don't want to.
No, go on, do your thing.
All right, so Ricky, you went on to talk about the England situation. So you won about, was it three caps or four?
Three
caps for England. Do you think playing for such an unfashionable club like Luton hindered your, opportunity to get more caps, or do you think it might have just been a racism at play, or what do you reckon?
It's
Luton.
hard to generalize. It's always going to be subjective, and I'm always going to err on the side of where I believe, I've been unfairly treated, so to speak. The fact of the matter is, if I give you one example of where I feel, what more could I do? Bobby Robson had always been an admirer of me from the time I was 18. He was always trying to sign me, unbeknown to me at the time, when he was at Ipswich, when they won the European Cup Winners' Cup and was second in the equivalent of the Premier League now. And every time he saw Davy Pleat, he would put his arm around Davy Pleat and say, when are you going to sell me your boy Hill? I never knew this. And obviously I didn't have an agent. Agents weren't prevalent. So no, in those days, clubs would just say, not for sale, and put the phone down. And the players would never know. So Bobby Robson came to one particular game. We played Birmingham City midweek at Kenilworth Road. And we beat Birmingham, which again, in the old First Division, which is the Premier League now. We beat Birmingham 3-0, 3-1 on the night. I scored 2. I made the other one. Bobby Robson was there. No other games were going on in the country. So this was the focus. And then it wasn't live TV as often as it is now. So next day in the Sun newspaper, the headline is Black Magic. Hill's a must for the Wales home international in 2 weeks' time at Wembley.
Black Magic.
Black Magic. And then another one goes there. So next thing you know, I go to the squad now. 10 days later, I join up with the squad, and we used to meet up in Hertfordshire, down at West Lodge Park in, what's that place called? Hadley Wood. So the squad would meet there on a Sunday. We'd go there, we'd train Sunday afternoon, get some cobwebs out from the Saturday game. And as I was leaving the pitch, Don Howe said to me, Ricky, the gaffer would like to speak to you after you finished getting showered. So I said, okay, Don, great. Be there whenever. So went upstairs to the hotel room, got showered, came back down. And Don Howe was sitting with Bobby Robson. And Bobby Robson said, Ricky, I know you're here. I know you're expecting to play Wednesday, and rightfully so, because I saw you play last week and you're in magnificent form. He said, but Gordon Cowens has just joined us from Aston Villa. He's here. We have to have a look at everyone in the squad. Keep going. Don't worry about it. And I thought, wow, I played as well as I did. He has always wanted to sign me. And yet still on this game, which is a home international game in October sometime, he still didn't pick me for that game. And I thought, well, if that's the case now, I don't know what else I have to do in order to get an opportunity. I think one of the other things that deterred me from getting more caps under Bobby Robson was the fact that for whatever England, so we had 2 up and down, right and left sided midfielders. It was Barnsley on the left and Steve Coppell on the right, or Trevor Stephen on the right and Chris Waddle on the left, whoever it was. But they were out and out wide men that would go up and down. When I played for Luton, I played in a 3-man midfield, which is now fashionable. But we also had a left winger. So I had the whole of the right side to take care of. So I'd go out on the right, I'd come in the middle, I'd go and help the fullback. And I had the energy to do that, which was great for me. So even on my debut, when he gave me my debut against West Germany at Wembley, so Bobby said, I know this isn't your position that you play. I know you don't play there for your club, but can you do a job for me there? I said, of course, I want to play. So I played for the first time probably in my life on the right of a 4-man midfield in my first international full game. So that again might have deterred me from, because he didn't, I don't know if he really trusted me in the 2-man midfield. At the time, I believe, and David Pleat said to me privately on occasions when I was playing still, he said the best midfield at that time should have been myself, Robson and Hoddle as a three-man midfield and then work around whatever else. So I think that went against me. But in terms of, as I mentioned earlier, I felt my skill set and what I could bring to the international game would have been suited to that kind of level.
Okay, thank you. Sydney, you hand up.
Yeah. Ricky Hill, hi.
Hi, Sydney.
Pleasure having you here. Thank you very much for your contribution to the beautiful game.
My pleasure.
I had a question about your career moving on from very successful footballer to management and coaching. You've done that internationally, and I saw in one of the interviews you're talking about not having opportunities locally. I mean, to ask a silly question, you know, do you think racism had something to do with it?
Oh, yes. No, Sydney, thank you. And it's a great question because, you know, a lot of us in our community, we wonder what's happened to various ex-players who are Black or racially diverse, because once our playing careers are over, we really, really get another opportunity to be seen within the professional environment as coaches, as managers, as scouts, as ambassadors, you know, as general managers for organizations. And the issue that we have all over again, same as when I came in as a player, was I was first generation Black player. So it was an unknown. They were all those stereotypical comments that were put out there, negative ones that were supposed to keep us from being able to be involved. You know, we are lazy. We didn't like heading the ball. We didn't like the cold weather. We had antagonistic. We didn't, you know, couldn't take criticism. All these things that predominantly white people would throw out amongst each other would stick in certain areas. And it was only because of the will, as Desmond said earlier, of people like Luther and Cyril and myself and Brian, who went through all of those negativities to actually play, that suddenly people thought, wow, they're all right, we need them. It's not the fact that they wanted us, they needed us for the brand, they needed us for their victories, they needed us for the fan appreciation. Now as a coach stroke manager, that talent that we have is not visible. It's within us, but we have no platform to express just how good we can be in that field as well. And it's easier for them to suppress that movement. As we've seen, 3 generations since I've retired have finished in the game and have not had opportunities. You know, from Sol Campbell or Paul Ince has had a couple. You know, you could go down the list. Every 5 years, there's new people that fall out the game. Ledley Kings and various others that are talented people, talented footballers, intelligent guys, want to be managers, but we're not afforded the same avenues or access to be considered for roles. I mean, ultimately, no one expects to be given anything for nothing. But if we put ourselves forward, we have the right qualifications, if we go out and take the time to get ourselves educated and pay our money like everyone else, then we'd like to be considered at least when an opportunity comes around. And to date, that hasn't been afforded. I finished playing 30 odd years ago in England, and I've had one managerial opportunity, and that was Luton Town. That was for 4 months. And obviously I served at the club for 15 years. But again, it was, whether it's because I was unknown, well, I wasn't unknown in terms of my notoriety, but as a coach, whether it's because racism played a part as a Black face being the head of the organization, not everyone is comfortable with that. You know, there are people that want their organizations to resemble the personnel that own the organizations. That's hence so many managers have failed. English managers, Caucasian managers have failed numerous occasions, but still get opportunities. Whereas a Black coach, generally a racially diverse person, cannot even get an opportunity, not even an opportunity to address the powers that be. So from that perspective, I know for sure that I would have liked to have the same kind of career I had as a player, as a manager and a coach. But in the UK, unfortunately, because there is no, I'm not going to say policy, but there's no appetite to include us at the levels that I think our skills and our playing careers warranted.
to the detriment of the beautiful game, really. I think,
100%.
anyway.
100%.
Abdul, you got a question?
Yes. I was wondering, Ricky,
Yes, sir.
I feel that the reason why there's no appetite for managerial positions from black players is because I feel if they give an opportunity to one black player, they would doors would open up for others to enter in as well. That's how I feel anyway. You know what I mean? They just don't want the competition, really. I don't feel, because they know, because they say, oh well, they're good at football, right? They're good at football, right? They could compete at the highest level at football. Now, what if we give them managerial positions? They'll probably be able to compete, in that area as well. So, I mean, that's how I feel anyway. Yeah. So, so I mean, Patrick Vieira's got a position, hasn't he? Managerial position for what's the other again?
Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace. That's it. Yeah. So, and he's doing quite well for that kind of team. And he's doing quite well. And I think he's had a couple of seasons with them, so, and he's doing quite well in the Premiership. So I do feel it's a pity, really, that that you didn't really get the chance that was afforded to you, 100%. And so I'm sure you would have shined through in that position, because I feel also that that as who said that? I think it was Spencer says that to the detriment of football, they just don't want to give black people the opportunity. It's very difficult, very, very difficult.
And unfortunately, we have support from our communities, but we don't have that overall public support from the masses, particularly from the media, who will be pushing someone's name who's from a racially diverse background. Generally, they will push someone that looks like them, Frank Lampard or Steven Gerrard. Doesn't matter. Wayne Rooney, he packed up on Wednesday and was a manager by Thursday. John Terry, he packed up on Monday and was an assistant manager by Friday. Gary Neville packed up by Tuesday and was England's assistant manager by the following one, was on a 3-year contract. So when it suits, they find a way to keep their own within the system. No one is fighting for black players or ex-black players to remain prominent at the high levels that they should be and playing a part within the game. Chris Hughton, to this day, even though Chris is not employed currently, I don't believe, but he's the only one of my generation who was actually working within the professional environment over the last 3, 4, 5 years. All of those first generation black players, none of us managed to have a career or a longevity of a career within the industry. And I think that's a sad indictment of the game. I know for myself personally, I have a very good skill set in the coaching side of things. I have 3 professional coach of the year awards, twice in America, once in Trinidad and Tobago, all in professional leagues. So I've been at Tottenham and I've been at Sheffield Wednesday as an academy under 19 head coach. So I know I have a capability, but for whatever reason, that's not afforded or it doesn't transition into any opportunities within the UK.
Sadly, yeah, sadly. Laps, you have a question?
Yes, thanks. Hi, Ricky.
Yes, how you doing? Good to see you again.
Yes, I've missed you.
It's been too long.
I told you about the time where my dad took me to a freezing cold night game in Luton where you were playing, and I'm sure he took me to meet you, to see you play, but I was there for Liverpool. I'm a Luton fan, but I was there to see Liverpool, and I was
3-0 game.
3-0, yeah, and I was like jumping up in the stands. I was the only Liverpool person, as everyone's surrounded by Luton. But that was a pretty cool night. But as I grew older, I was told I was younger. I turned to Ricky Hill. I used to be Pele. What when you're playing football for your team?
Good choice.
And Pele's going into the full and then I turn into Ricky. So
kind. I'm flattered.
So no, we scored 60 goals that season. But
Tremendous. Tremendous.
My question is to
Yeah.
you. My friend says that money's ruining the game, and that it's crazy. But back in the day when Ricky Hill was playing, because he knew he was coming on today, that it didn't seem to be that much money going about for players. You know what I mean? Now they're making ridiculous amount, 300,000 a week and all that.
Yes.
Do you think money is ruining the game?
I don't think so, Bess. For me personally, I'm glad. I'm glad because ultimately the money that the players receive right now is only a small percentage of the actual economy and economics that is spread throughout the world globally. When you consider the TV rights deals that they've signed a couple of weeks ago or last year, they're for billions. And unfortunately, I mean, it's fortunate for those players who are playing now and some of the players who are not as talented as the elite ones. They still earn ridiculous amounts of money because it's part of the TV rights deal that the PFA agreed with the Premier League. And so that share and that solidarity payment that they get every year, it has to be distributed. And whether the players are worth it or not, it's still only a minuscule amount of money in comparison to what the game generates from the global TV rights. Me, for one, I obviously would have loved to have played in this era, for sure. Apart from the financial benefits that you have, the field conditions, you know, that for me, I look on the telly at the lowest levels and there's a flat green pitch that has no grass, no mud, no. I think, wow, what would that be like playing? I used to get excited. We used to run on, as a child, on the bowling greens in our park in Gladstone Park. And that pitch was pristine, right? Perfect. Yeah. So imagine now, every time you step out to play a game, that's what greets you. When you go to training, that's what greets you. I used
to see some torrential pitches you guys used to play on. You kick the ball and it just come to a standstill.
Can't go anywhere. Mud, squash, snow, you name it. And we had to. And you know, I don't mind sharing with you that I was an England international playing for Luton. I was on £250 a week. Guys at Bedford Motors, if they'd done overtime, would be not far off what I was getting. So it wasn't because we were paid by bums on seats. No TV rights deal.
Different time,
different era. But
so can I ask you one backup question? Everyone plays fantasy football, right? So who's the best team? It's a double question.
All right.
Who would you love to manage? Which team would you love to manage and why? And have you got a fantasy football team?
Second one, no, I don't. I'm not into the technology side of things. Football Manager, FIFA, whatever else. With my son, I used to play FIFA, but not Football Manager. I left that to them. That's for the professionals. That's too good for me. Team I'd like to manage now, if I had the opportunity, I guess it would probably be Leeds, because that's the team I supported as a child, and it's a team that I still support to this day.
You've gone for the nostalgic answer.
I have, because that's what I'm really about. It's that, you know, I'm not one of those fanatical supporters. I love the game, but my heart belongs to certain things. You know, Yorkshire Cricket Club, Leeds United Football Club, Real Madrid, Celtic as a Scottish team. We all have, you know, your Italian, your Scottish teams. And I tend to be that kind of guy where I stick to what I believe is best at that moment in time. That's, you know.
You love what you love, yeah?
So Leeds got a good team right now then, yeah?
Still needs work. They've got an American head coach who's come, a guy named Jesse Marsh, who's come from somewhere in Austria or somewhere via the MLS in America. And they sold a couple of their players this week, big players for them. So it's a rebuild thing, but hopefully we'll manage to stay up next year and then build and continue to grow.
All right.
Thanks,
you'll make it one day.
Wow. Time I run sharp.
I'll write them a letter for you.
Time I run red. Garvin, you got a question, bro? If you're there.
Yes, Good evening, Mr. Hill.
Hi, good evening, Garvin.
Yes. Question with regards to management.
Yes.
You mentioned that you manage in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
The question is, what led you to Trinidad and Tobago, and what was your experience like managing in Trinidad?
Sounds like you're from the home country there, Garvin.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Which part?
Tobago, same as Dwight
Oh, you're
York.
Tobago. You're from
Yes.
Dwight York's place.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. And that's Bert Sinclair, Coach Sinclair?
Yes, Sinclair. Yes, yes.
Right, that's my man. So yeah, no, it just came out of the blue actually. Mitchell Thomas bumped into Terry Fenwick, and Terry Fenwick's the ex-Tottenham and QPR.
Yes,
in England.
and he managed in Trinidad as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Terry was in Jabote at the time in the Trinidad Professional League, but Terry came back to manage Northampton Town. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. He was only there 7 games. By that time, Mitchell had bumped into him, and Terry had said to Mitchell, "Would you like to go and manage in Trinidad?" And Mitchell said, "Well, no, I don't really want to be coaching and managing, but I think Ricky might like the idea." And so I spoke to Terry, and Terry and I were England teammates and club teammates at Leicester for a short spell in the 90s. And Terry said, "Listen, Rick, this job's out there." He put me in touch with the committee, the 4-man committee, flew me out the same week, had the interview, offered me the position. And I went out there, left the family behind. Beautiful country, beautiful location. The beauty about Trinidad at that time, from a footballing perspective, was because they had the under-17 World Cup previously, they'd had a number of purpose-built stadiums built for the World Cup. And now the teams were using those. So they had lovely playing fields generally in stadiums, the 20,000-seater stadiums, most of them, modern. And it was a great experience from that perspective. Also, I was fortunate enough to go to a side that had some wonderful players. We had 6 from that team that went to the 2006 World Cup finals in Germany with Trinidad when they qualified and Tobago for the first time. We had 6 playing. We actually had 13 represent Trinidad in the qualifiers to get to the World Cup. And during that season, I managed to win, or the club managed to win, 4 of the 5 trophies that are available, including the best club side in the Caribbean, professional side in the Caribbean, that got us into the Champions League. And we ultimately beat MLS Chicago Fire, which was the first time any Caribbean team had beaten the champions of America in the club champions of America. So I had a really good experience. The sad part of it was my family were here, and the committee and I didn't really get along, even though we were successful. They didn't treat the players in the right manner as I felt they should do. And I decided to call it a day and came back. The guy, interestingly enough, and this is a story that's in my book, the guy that took my place when I came back was another white coach, a guy called Steve Rutter. And he took me on my B license, actually. He took over that team who lost only 1 player, and that was Cornell Glenn, who went to New York Metro Stars in the MLS. He had the same squad, and that following season, he ended up winning no trophies and was relieved of his duties at towards the end of that year. He then came back to England and went back into coach education, and then became the head of coach education for the English FA a few years later. So my success meant nothing. His relative failure, he came back and was still successful within the industry now. And he's gone on and had plenty of opportunities. I believe he's overseas in Panathinaikos or somewhere now.
Thank you so much for your service.
No, thank you, darling. My pleasure.
Desmond, you have a question?
Brother Hill.
Yes.
As a final question from me, looking to the future, do you think it will be possible in the near future that a syndicate of Black players or ex-Black players will buy a sort of a Premier or a First Division club, or invest in one, a bit like what Rooney's doing, so that if they won't let you in through their door, do you think it'd be possible to build a house and put your own door on it?
That's a great question, Desmond. And it has been muted on numerous occasions. You're going back 25, 30 years. We was talks at Al Hamilton, I don't know if you've heard of him, he used to put on the Commonwealth Sports Awards, one of the first community sports awards events that used to take place. In fact, he used to manage, well, not manage, he found Frank Bruno because he was dating Frank Bruno's sister. And he took Frank Bruno into boxing and done a number of great things. He's written a couple of books. He wrote the first Black Pearls of Soccer book in 1982. Al's a dear friend of mine and he lives in Jamaica currently. He's 80 years old last week. But he was a pioneer that tried to, as you rightly say, mobilize. If you're not going to be allowed in through the correct manner, through appealing to their better nature, is it not possible that we can get together and get some people together that could then invest in a smaller club and grow it from grassroots right through? And unfortunately for us, there was a time when Cyril was alive and Laurie was alive and we were galvanizing and everyone was getting together. And then someone leaked the fact that we were mobilizing. And next thing you know, in the papers, the mainstream papers came and fronted a few of the players and said, is that correct? There's going to be talk of a black union, and a black this and a black that. And all of a sudden, the guys kind of went and we dispersed and it kind of stopped it in its tracks. And that was going back 25 years. Right now, as we speak, I know there's a group of black coaches who, again, I think Les Ferdinand's part of the group as part of it, and Chris Ramsey and Paul Davis. And there's over 250 black coaches who are part of the group. And obviously they're all qualified and they want to be part of the system and the industry, but they're not. I don't know if we have enough wealth amongst us. Yeah, our generation, as you know, we didn't have the opportunity. We had no premiership money. You know, we were always going to have secondary jobs once our careers were over. Now, the guys, fortunately for them, they can have 5 years within the game at a certain level, and they will be set up, if they're sensible with their money, to have a good life, and their children's and their generation's life after them will hopefully be catered for too. I've been writing to the Premier League for years. I've written to Richard Schoonermore and I've written to Richard Masters, who's the CEO, and I'm trying to demand a percentage of the solidarity payments that all the clubs get every year from the Premier League just because they exist. My argument has been we are 30% labour on the field of play, and we are 0.03% in terms of representation outside of the field of play in all levels, technical staff, senior staff, directors. So I'm saying, well, that doesn't seem fair that all of a sudden these clubs, and include Luton, for instance, Luton get 5.1 million from the Premier League just because they're Luton. They're not on the Premier League's platform of games, but the Premier League have to distribute that money. That money is going predominantly to the board and they distribute it as they see fit. Now, I've been asking via letter on occasions to say, well, we haven't been treated fairly. We are disproportionately treated unfairly. We have been for the last 30 years. Now, this TV rights deal and everything else, we should be able to have something put aside for our own development, for our own equity, for our own wealth advancement, for our own career advancements, whether that's setting up youth programs in all the major cities that Bob Hazel can run in Birmingham, that Ledley King can run in Tottenham, that I can run in Luton, that is funded by the system because everyone else is being taken care of. But our generation, once we've finished playing and our services have been rendered, that seems to be the end of us in the eyes of the game.
So basically then, you don't see that happening in the near future.
Yeah.
And because racism is not so much overt as it used to, but it is more pernicious now that it's going undercover.
Yes.
So they might take a knee, but they won't put their hands in their pocket. So what do you see the future looking like then for the young players coming up, if you had to advise them, I mean, I know of a young man, he's a lawyer, and I said to him, I said, why don't you become a football agent and try and work with black players to give them better representation at the negotiating level? Because I think a black man having a white lawyer or a white agent to negotiate on his behalf is like a criminal getting a duty solicitor. So basically, it's not going to work, is it? So
well,
I think, man, like yourself, Brother Ricky, is that your work isn't over yet, because it's the next level that you're needed, because you have the maturity, you have the experience, you have the nuances and so forth. So I can only continue to rise you up and hope that you have long life to continue the good work, because football is an important aspect of the culture, particularly of young black youths today. And if they're going to be treated as slaves, it's not going to be good enough. It's not going to be talking about the racism 40 years ago, when the racism now is even worse. So they may give you a little penny to go away with so you can buy a flash car and eat in fancy restaurant. And when they're ready to bring you down, they set you up with a maiden and scream rape. So there's a lot of issues there for young black players, I think, and they need the support and guidance of people like yourself.
Well, interesting you mentioned that. There's some great points there, Desmond. Raheem Sterling, 2 years ago, went out vocally and asked, is it not possible that we can have a black coach situated with every club in the Premier League within the first team setup? Because there are times when culturally these guys get themselves into situations where they need to speak to people who have like-minded people that have come through the same journeys or similar journeys of whatever the case is. And Raheem called it out. The industry paid no notice. As you rightly say, I've written on those points likewise. You know, can we not play a role as mentors? When the Premier League has been opened up to the global audience that it has been and the global outreach that it has been, when players are coming from far extinct places in Africa that we've never heard of, wouldn't it be nice to see amongst the technical staff some black faces? We may not speak the same language, but they would see someone of a kindred spirit that maybe, if I have a problem, where's the barbers? Where can I go and get a restaurant to have food that tastes like it comes from back home where I'm from? But the industry take no interest in providing that for them. They will give them the standard greet and meet with their PR person or their catering person that looks after them, or a HR person, and that's it. It doesn't look like them. Foreign language, foreign place, foreign industry, whether it's from up north or whether it's down or it's from the continent and coming back to the UK. Now, as my poster here says, I brought the Rooney Rule from the NFL in 2004 to this country. And the NFL, the National Football League, it enables anytime a job becomes available in the front office, senior position in front offices, or as a head coach or assistant head coach, offensive coordinator, they will interview someone from a black, African-American or Asian ethnic. I brought it to the UK in 2004. And I said, it was out in 2003 in America. And I knew about it before it even came out. And I brought it to the governing bodies, Premier League, the Football League, everyone else. And there was no appetite to insert it, to enable you to even meet the people that make decisions. What happened? 14 years later, the FA took it and rolled it out in its verbatim as it stands now. English cricket have it. South African rugby have it. ITV have taken parts of the Rooney Rule. Channel 4 have taken parts of it for their hiring practices. And I was the first person to bring it to this country. No one mentions that. No one within the industry even says, oh, Ricky was the first one that done that. He's the one that I went to America and researched. I was with Belinda Lerner, the NFL lawyer who implemented the ruling. I went and met with the guys, Fitzpollard Alliance, who Johnny Cochran, O.J. Simpson's lawyer, was representing to implement these things. So I've always been trying on my own, to try to move the needle forward, push Black prominence in regards to, not from a Black power perspective, but Black equality perspective. All we want is equality, an opportunity to be equal like everyone else. We don't want to be, we don't want tokenism. We don't want to be given a job because I'm no good. But I don't expect to be not given an opportunity just because of my color of my skin. And I don't expect to be starting a 100-meter race, starting 150 meters away.
Yeah.
So this is why I've been striving. I've been fortunate. I've got a wonderful wife who has been with me every step of the way, has allowed me to go out on my own. And I know other people wouldn't have had that luxury. It was our 36th anniversary yesterday, so I big her up.
Congratulations.
Sharon.
Congratulations, sir.
From Kensal Rise, it's foundation. So from that perspective, I've always had the community alongside me, and I'm still riding for as long as I can, Desmond. I'm going to keep calling it out as long as I can, keep saying things that people, even our own people, don't like, because they're in positions and they're comfortable in their position. I'm rocking their boat. Certain people have been part of the, as they say, you got to be in the room. We've had people that look like you and I in the room for nearly 30 years, and we've had no outcomes, but yet still those same people are in the rooms. So my argument is no other industry would allow that. You go to any workplace, if you didn't solve the issue, or you had the criteria to do so, and the mandate to do so, and you didn't do it, you wouldn't be there next year or 5 years. But the same faces are still going around, from the FA to the PFA to the Football League to the Premier League.
They're called gatekeepers. They look like us, but they're not us.
It's not for me to say, doesn't, but that's very eloquently.
No, they're gatekeepers. We know that because they are the main ones who to prove themselves to their master. They're the new modern slave drivers, because I've had experience of that myself personally. But I leave it to karma because I'm stronger than that.
There you go.
But I know a less stronger person might have done something detrimental, but I choose to smile. And when I see these people, I just smile at them and just move on.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise. Because
thank you, my brother, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Can I jump in a minute there?
Yeah, I'm finished.
I know time's running out. Ricky.
Mark.
Yeah, so congratulations to you and cousin Sharon on the anniversary. Big up.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to address the Luton situation, Ricky, because I'm a Luton fan, and I remember when you got the manager's job. Remember when you got the manager's job on that first match?
Yes.
And remember, I waited for you after the game.
Yes.
And we went on the roads. And to be honest, I'll never forget that evening, Ricky. It's like I was hitting the town with Drake or Bob Marley or someone, innit? The love from the people, them everywhere we went, innit? You didn't even, I don't really feel we even had to spend any money that night, did we, really? It was just like,
no.
And, obviously the people, them in Luton, you know what I mean? Black, white, Asian, everybody, they love you, innit? You're like the number one player, really, the favorite all-time player. If you go on any of the fan forums and everything, innit? There's no one's got a bad word to say about you, man. So I don't understand the situation with Luton. All right, it didn't work out with the manager's team. Your managers get sacked all the time. All right, we get it. Right, whatever. Right, but why hasn't Luton dealt with you properly as like in some ambassadorial role or something? They haven't really dealt with you. I've sent numerous emails to them. I've never had a reply. And it's a really sore point, you know what I mean? And I know a lot of people are not happy about it, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying, of all backgrounds. It comes up all the time. What's your view? What do you think has happened? Why they're dealing with you so shabbily?
Well, first of all, thank you for all the support and everything over many, many years, everyone on this platform. The managerial position, it was the right place, wrong time. Simple as that for me. I walked into, I want to say a shitstorm, maybe I can do, but it was. I mean, and Tanny was there, so he would know what the club was like at the time that I went there. They'd been in administration for 3.5 years. They'd been on their belly. They had no money. They'd sold all their best players. And I walked in halfway through pre-season with the remit of, yeah, let's just keep them up. Let's build, put it down, try to improve on last year's position, and then we take it from there. A new consortium came in who bought the club. Again, unbeknown to the new consortium, all they were buying was the players, because the club ground is owned by the council, the assets is no one else's. So the players were the 3.5 million that the new consortium paid. I done my first football report after a month and said, you got 6 players here. The other 13, if you want to see improvement, they will have to move on over a period of time. Give me 4 players now to work with, experienced players, plus the squad we have. At the end of the year, a number of these players' contracts are up, and we will leave them and let them go from there. We won't renew their contracts. Unfortunately for me, the ex-chairman became the director of football. Again, the new consortium had no idea that the ex-chairman had no contacts in the game. He was only a chairman. All of a sudden, he's got the director of football tag, and I'm also blowing a hole in his theory as to why the consortium should have paid 3.5 million for the players. He had said to them, you can sell a couple of these players to recoup your money. That wasn't the case. So anyway, I made an enemy with the director of football, or let's say not an enemy, not a fan, but also it was a transitional period. The 13 players that I said would leave, they all left within 13 months. Only 1 player out of those 13 managed to get another professional club. And he only played 6 more games for Peterborough United. The other 12 went straight into non-league, semi-pro. No, so they weren't good enough. My report was correct, factual. Because of how things were and my popularity, that also didn't help me in that instance, because we were going through a bad time. We're going to play Russian and Diamonds in the FA Cup on a Friday. We'd beaten them 5-0 in pre-season. The club decided that things hadn't really improved. I also became the first manager. We were the first all-black managerial team in the history of English football. My assistant was Chris Ramsey, who's now the technical director at Queen's Park Rangers, who was also the manager at Queen's Park Rangers a couple of years ago after Harry Redknapp left. So we became the first all-black managerial team, which I'm very proud of. Chris was given 3 months before they pulled the rug, and I was given 4 months. Now, the old adage of you can't judge a manager until he has his own team, for whatever reason, didn't apply to me. The other one, when Arsene Wenger says you need 3 years to build your team, that didn't apply to me either, for whatever reason. 4 months was deemed an opportunity for me. I don't look upon that as any opportunity, Mark. I look upon that as right place, wrong time. And unfortunately for me, since that time, and I said to the chairman when they had the Cross Atlantic conference, when he was saying to me, Ricky, this is the hardest decision of my life. I said to the chairman, Mr. Chairman, you don't know the ramifications that your decision will have on my career. And he went to great lengths. No, Ricky, everyone rates you as a coach. You've been at Tottenham, you've been at Sheffield Wednesday. I said, it doesn't matter. How many black managers do you see? And it's proven to be the point whereby the outsiders will see Ricky Hill having 4 months of Luton and think, oh, it can't be very good. Why would they get rid of him? But the facts were, they weren't ready for me. The consortium weren't ready for me. And there was internal politics and backfighting that anyone would have had difficulties sorting out. Now, post that time, I have no idea why. I've lived in Luton for 20 years now. And I've never been invited. I've been invited back to the club 4 years ago, for one game on a Friday night with my daughter against Middlesbrough. And the jobs have become available, different things. And for whatever reason, I've even applied for roles in the academy coaching. And for what they say, I haven't met the standard that's required, whatever that means. And I'm more qualified than all of those and the person that ultimately got the job. So they must have their reasoning. They profess that they love you, they profess they care. But as I mentioned earlier, once our playing days are over and we're rendered not useful anymore, do they really want you to be part of the organization? Do they need my popularity there to overshine someone else, or to maybe cast aspersions on others. Who knows? But for me, they've never reached out, Mark. And ultimately, life moves on, and we all have to move on. And I'm still on that journey of, listen, you don't want me, okay? I ain't begging you. I done what I did. We had a great time. You provided a platform for me to make my career and be known. You didn't furnish me with riches beyond, and even bigger clubs came in, and I stayed loyal because they never even told me they came in. So I feel semi-cheated in those situations. But as I say, we only have one life, and I don't have time to be bitter. I just have to keep moving, keep forward, and keep putting my next foot forward, because I'm trying to be an example for those who come after us.
True word, true word. I've got 3 questions. 2 questions have come
True,
in.
true. Could I ask one question, and then Blacks, I see you got your hands up.
Oh, one minute, Mark, 1 minute. I was going to ask you about the Rooney rule. It's okay, but you explained that. Can you mention your book that you've done? Because I see there's a movie out as well, but can you mention the book?
Yeah, the book's called Love of the Game, and basically it was just, the premise of it was, the title working that I created was the fact that, I've played the game, I loved the game, I've loved it as a child. The game hasn't always been good to me. In fact, it's been more negative to me than good at certain elements, particularly post my playing career. But I still love the game. And no matter what happens, I'm going through whatever trials and tribulations, that love will always come through. So the book just goes through the whole journey of, even when people quote the fact that I'm the first somewhat of South Asian heritage, because my dad was Jamaican Indian, but my great-grandparents were born in India. My grandfather was born in Jamaica in 1905, working the land. And how I got the Hill name was because he was registered in the landowner's name. His family name was Suki, but he was named John Hill after the landowner where they were working. His subsequent siblings were all named Suki, but Hill's my bloodline now, even though it would be classed as my slave name. But, the book charters all that journey, charters a little bit of my family, charters the facts of the situations where I revisit certain games from my own perspective, memorable matches, where, the Littlewoods Cup final, the Main Road winner takes all game, the Everton semi-final, FA Cup final. And in my own mind's eye, I relive those moments and go through them with those who are reading it. And also there's a big pieces about the Rooney rule and my efforts to try to get that implemented in the UK.
Nice one, nice one. Ma, go ahead. And then Blaps.
Yeah, how you doing, Ricky?
Good, Marvin, thank you.
Good. Just a quick question. Have you ever been called to be a football presenter or anything like that, where you've been on TV, obviously giving coverage on football matches and stuff like that? Have you ever been given that opportunity?
See, great question again, Marvin. Interesting that, because unfortunately for me, again, the association thing hasn't worked in my favor. My large association within football is synonymous with Luton Town. And when Luton Town were in the doldrums, gone into non-league, gone into lower divisions, the higher profile, the Premier League and stuff, they would get my former teammates, people like Paul Walsh, Ian Dowie, who have a Tottenham, who have a Manchester City, who have a West Ham United associated with their name. I have Luton Town, and if Luton Town aren't prominent, then they're not coming to, even though people might recognize who I am, they're still not going to give me that opportunity. So reality, in answer to that question, no, I would have liked to have.
Yeah, but you're an international player.
100%, Marvin.
You're an international player, is that they can't just base that decision off of you playing for Luton. You played for England also.
100%. And it's a valid point. But again, I mean, now there might be more opportunities because, since the George Floyd incident, unfortunately, there's this leveling up that is taking in place, and they want to be more inclusive. So there might be areas where the avenues for me to step in. Whether I really would want to do it and enjoy it, I'm not so sure, because although I see the game as a supporter first and foremost, I love the game and I admire talent. I don't know if I could be someone who would just be there to have an objective just to stir the pot, shall we speak, without it being, just an honest appraisal of what I'm seeing from the critique perspective.
As well as being in Trinidad and Tobago, you was in America, yes?
Yes.
Tampa Bay, but I hear that over there they loved you up as well, and you got a lot of interviews. Everybody wanted you to work with them.
No, it's interesting. I released in my last post in Tampa in 2014. I was there for 4 years, which incidentally would make me, as it stands, the longest serving Black head coach in American professional soccer's history. So they have the same issues that we're having in this country. So somehow I've managed to chisel a career at 3 different clubs in America, twice with Tampa, once with a team called Coco Expo. And I've also turned down a couple of other opportunities at various clubs. Right now, since 2014, I've written off, or people on my behalf have written off, numerous resumes, numerous applications for an opportunity in the United States now. And all of them have been met with silence. All of them have been met with not even the courtesy, thank you for your interest, but no reply. And ultimately what's happened, people that are less successful than I have been, less qualified in certain degrees, have been given the position. Now, I feel that is an injustice, and I'm going to fight that injustice, because ultimately football is supposed to be for all, not for when you can play, but for all, for everyone. So my credentials are such whereby I believe that any job in America, at any level, MLS, I should at least be granted an interview for that position. At least. There are 4 current MLS, which is the highest level in America, coaches that were coaching in my league in Tampa when I was coaching.
Right.
I have a 53% win record in that league, which is more superior to theirs. They managed to ascend into the MLS. I can't get a reply to my interest in a position, even in teams below the MLS. So I'm fighting that, DJ. Don't worry. Keep your ear to the ground, because I've got some news coming on that front.
All right, okay, that's rude. Blaps, you got a question, and then Abdul, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
Yes, thank you, Ricky.
Yes.
I was waiting to ask you, well, to tell you about I was telling you about the academy I run.
Yes.
It's a martial arts academy. Obviously, when I go for funding, because I'm in the sports part of the area region, football, rugby, cricket get the funding, right? So I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, wouldn't it be great if Ricky was working with Luton Academy, because I run an academy. So you run, and then you started talking about the academy won't have you in, and I was like, well, wait a minute, you're royalty, like Luton royalty. So like when you go to the Morecambe, is it the Morecambe Suite?
Yes, Eric Morecambe Suite.
Pictures in there.
All over. Yes.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, wait a minute. People are going to come in there, dignitaries from other countries, and say, oh, yeah, I remember Ricky here. What's he up to now? And they're going to be like, isn't he part of the academy? And I'm like, how do they justify you not? Where's the story for them? Because they got to answer for that.
Well, they don't, Blacks. They don't have to answer it, because they are the kings of their castle. And as I said, we don't have voices. We don't have enough bodies rallying for something like this to say, well, hold on, that's not a true representation of the community within Luton Town. They've got one black coach, Adrian Forbes, who actually incidentally got the position that I last applied for. So whether they were justifying it by that, but Adrian, okay, whatever, that's their choice. Maybe he fitted the culture with them better than I did. Again, I have to look from my perspective also to say, no, I would not be someone who, in their estimation, would easily fit in, although I have easily fitted in academies at Tottenham and academies at Sheffield Wednesday. There's always that fear element. People are always worried if you're more popular than them. They're always worried if you're more gifted than them. And so they tend to not have you within their environments. That's how I look upon it, Blacks. Even though they should embrace it, lots of people, particularly football people, do not embrace other talented people because could be a danger to them in their own positions, ultimately. Now, from your perspective, I sympathize because yes, football, rugby, cricket, whoever it is, they are funded to the hills. And something like karate, martial arts, kung fu, where it's for everyone in the community, not everyone's a sports person. There are people that need to have that for their mental health, for their well-being. It should be a level playing field, it should be equal. Whatever they get, you should be getting likewise. The opportunity to provide that for the community.
Yeah, I mean, it's either you join with the CDMA, my group, isn't it? Okay. And just we battle them together, or you start the Ricky Hill Fight Soccer Football Academy.
Right.
Yeah. And let them regret it.
Yeah. Well, that's something we can look at, something we can discuss.
You're not going to do it yourself? I would love to help you out. What?
We have discussed all that. My wife has always been pushing me for that. Get yourself your own store, get your own thing. And
that's why you need a wife.
Okay. On that one, that's again, not beating my own drum, not singing my own praises. I devised a scheme that was necessary for young players that were released from professional clubs. In 2005, I took it to the Premier League. I took it to all the footballing governors, bosses. What it was a second chance opportunity. So the guys that got released at 18 at professional clubs, I would then put them into a program that kept them going so their physical condition was maintained. They still had the focus of being pros. I would then take that team around to clubs and play behind closed doors games. I would then feed them back into the system as best I can. There was nothing out there like that, nothing at all. It was a welfare issue. What happened? The guy that was supposed to help me get it up and running in the Premier League as a Premier League development officer, his name was Hugh Jennings. And there's been an article in the Daily Mail 2 years ago about that. Back page of Daily Mail, inside page, how they stole my concept. He worked at the Premier League, left the Premier League, went to Fulham, bucked up with the head of Nike Europe football, who's a Fulham supporter. He presented, in my estimation, that initiative to him. Second lad. What happened? Nike took it. Nike run with it. It became Nike's biggest modeling marketing initiative in the world. Every center Nike had, they run a second chance. And this same guy that had my papers, who was supposed to help me get it up and running, was the director of the academy, head of the Nike Academy. Google it when we're done, and you'll see. And I took that to the football industry because why I done it, I was an under-19 coach, and I saw the pathway, the guys that I had to release had nowhere to go. They had no facility that they could jump into, which was similar to where they're coming from. So they just dwindled, fell out of love with the game, went back to the communities, got into all sorts of trouble, played non-league, and I devised this concept. It was called the Ricky Hill Professional Soccer Scheme. And
I mean, this is a heads up for anyone. I mean, there's little kids out here watching you playing and watching the younger ones playing today and watching people that are in the academies, and they are saying they have no clue. They're superstars already at 9 years old. You know, they're in the Liverpool Academy, they're in the Manchester Academy, and they're looking at the past, present, and the future, and they don't know how to deal with the fame. 100%. I don't know what they teach in the academies, but I mean, they just teach. It must be that they just teach them how to do interviews after the football game, because there not many people getting them interviews wrong. Yeah, it was a game of 2 hours, blah blah. You know what I mean? but like, when I'm saying like what you know,
yes,
like if you had you got intellectual property rights on that idea, you could tell that to a younger now and say, look, any idea you come out with, keep it to yourself until you get
100%.
intellectual property right. You know, maybe
100%.
you definitely need to start this academy, bro. I'm ready when you are. I'm ready when you are.
100%. And they, to be honest, they're doing a much better job now in terms of the aftercare of players who they release. I still believe that, you know, having a child in an academy at 6, 7 years old is way too early for me. You know, as I said, I came from the school, I learned how to play with my friends. And, you know, when I'm 14, 15, maybe then start to structure some stuff. But outside of that, go and learn, go and have fun, go and enjoy your life. This regimental 3 times a week at academy, school work, academy, and then getting released at 9, 10 can have a terrible detrimental effect on a young person.
Thinking. Thanks.
My pleasure, Bat.
All right, I think we're gonna wrap it up now.
Lovely.
Thanks a lot, Ricky Hill, for your
My pleasure, NDC.
for your time, and definitely for your service on the pitch in the beautiful game.
My
It's a
pleasure.
pleasure to watch you play, man, for real.
Thank you for all that you guys are doing for the community. The Mandem Chat, it's a wonderful idea. You know, everyone should have that in terms of our community. You know, and again, when I say community, I'm not talking specifically Black, I'm talking community.
Yeah,
all
community.
of us, we're a community, we are one.
That's right.
Like in Jamaica, you know, Otamene,
right. One love.
people. Yeah, man, Otamene, one people. That's us.
Thank you.
Pleasure, NDC. Nice one, Marky.
Thank you,
Everyone.
brother.
Thank you, brother.
My pleasure.
No worries, bro.
Abdul,
Thank you,
take
brother
care.
Ricky.
Namdu, take care, Desmond. All the best, everyone. Good luck to you all.
Nice one, brother.
Yeah,